Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Florida congressional candidate Gay Valimont with us today. We'll chat with her in just a second. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let me tell you a little bit about Gay Valimont. She is the Democratic candidate in the April 1st special election in Florida's 1st Congressional District. She's a gun violence prevention activist with a prior career in sports medicine. In 2012, she joined Moms Demand Action for Gunsense in America, rising from full-time grassroots activist to Florida state lead. Gay has suffered unfathomable personal tragedy, and she's here to tell her inspiring story of perseverance and patriotism. Gay, welcome into the back room.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So just for a little background for my listeners, on April 1st, you're going to be squaring off against Trump-endorsed Jimmy Patronis in a special election in Florida's 1st Congressional District. This is a seat that was vacated by scandal-plagued Matt Gaetz, and he resigned in November. And so yours is an incredibly tragic yet inspiring story. Share with us what happened with your family.
Yeah, so we moved here in 2014, and I became deeply embedded in the community, and I became a gun violence prevention activist, did a lot of volunteer work, and had a perfectly normal family. My husband was a PhD engineer, built airplanes. He was a genius, but loved to drink beer, and he was awesome. In 2020, during COVID, he began having symptoms of weakness and was diagnosed with ALS at 44. And then 6 months later, as we were trying to figure out how I was going to raise our child without his father, because ALS is 100% fatal, my son fell down at school, couldn't regain his balance. And 10 hours later, we were life flighted to Miami Children's Hospital, Nicholas Children's Hospital, where I was told that my son had a DIPG brain tumor and that it was 100% fatal as well. So I was my husband and my son's full-time caregiver until each of them took their last breath. And my son passed away 3 years ago, September, and my husband will have been gone in April, 3 years. So I lost my husband and my son within 6 months of each other.
I'm so sorry. I have experienced loss myself. I know what that does to people. What has been your process for navigating through such unfathomable loss and grief?
Well, grief is something that we all sit in, right? The reason I was able to get up after my husband and my son passed away is because I've worked with so many gun violence prevention activists who are mothers of dead children. They gave me the courage, and I was sitting on the beach, so my recovery, my soul needed to stare at the water. So I sat on the beach for 6 months and stared at the water because that was the only place I could find peace. And I got an alert on my phone one day that said Matt Gaetz had filed a federal stand your ground bill. And I knew that when he did that in Florida, our gun homicide rate went up 32%. And at that very moment, I felt fire in my belly and knew that there was nobody better to fight him on this than me. So I found the courage to get up. Grief is something that you struggle with every day. You never get over it. Managing it is a daily struggle. But my family would be so proud of me right now. My son would love the spotlight. I know that every day I make them proud, and that's why I will continue to do this.
You know, when tragedy strikes, I have found that you end up falling into one bucket or the other. One bucket is crawl into bed, put the covers over your head, and just stay there for a very long time. And then the other people are those who just, the proverbial get knocked off the horse, get back on, dust off, and try to somehow find the silver lining, somehow turn this horrible situation into something positive. And
Very
that's
much.
why your story is so inspiring, because it might be hard for people to understand how you go through something so tragic, so horrible, so unfair, and then decide to run for Congress, like which is a whole cesspool unto itself.
Right.
And how do you find the what makes you persevere and find the courage and the strength and the selflessness and patriotism to do that despite the journey you've been on and continued to be on and will be on for the rest of your life? Because I happen to believe there's no such thing as closure. I'm not sure what your opinion is
No.
on closure, but as you said, grief is a part of all of our lives, and it stays with us. And so it is very inspiring that, especially at this particular time in our nation's history, with all the problems and the challenges we're facing, that you've decided that you can do this.
I feel like I have to because I'm capable and I can. And I think it is, people tell you that somebody has to ask you 7 times to run for office. People have told me all the time, you need to run for office. You need to run for office. And I couldn't imagine it when I had a child, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. Like, how do you manage that?
Hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like now that my family's gone, and it sounds horrible. Now that my family's gone, I feel obligated to take care of everybody else's family.
Yeah. And like you said, they would be very proud of you because what you're doing is really admirable and important. So,
Thank you.
given the razor thin majority Republicans have, what do you want voters, especially voters in your district, to understand about the significance of your campaign?
Well, I don't think the stakes could be any higher. And wow, I feel the pressure. um, Locally, what we're going through right now, the cuts to federal employees, we have 20,000 federal employees in this district
Hmm.
who are on the chopping block. And when those people lose their jobs, they're not going to be able to find another specific job that they did on one of these bases in this district. They're going to take their families, they're going to take their money, they're going to take everything out and go somewhere else. Our local economy can't take that. Also, our VA is at 140% capacity already. And now they're going to cut 83,000 jobs from the VA. It's unimaginable. We have the most veterans of any district in Florida and second in the nation. Our veterans here deserve the best. They put their lives on the line for us. And now we're telling them we can't even take care of their health care. And that's unacceptable. So when I get to Washington, I'm going to make sure that these cuts don't happen. I'm going to make sure that we keep our VA successful because they give good care at the VA. They just don't have enough people. And now we cannot strip doctors and nurses and even the people that check people in at the VA. I read an article this morning about people doing the mental health facilities are having to stop doing online care, which is helpful for our veterans
Sure.
to not have to travel back and forth, and they're going to stop doing that. And now they're doing mental health care in cubicles out in public because everybody has to show up to work. The policies that are going down in Washington are affecting our district desperately, and we have to fix it.
Yeah, it's so important for the people in your district and Americans everywhere to understand that this is a president and a party that touted their support for law enforcement, for the military. We support the blue, we support veterans. This
Mm-hmm.
attack on veterans is unconscionable, but it's twofold because it's not just about cutting services for veterans at the VA, but 30% of the federal workforce is comprised of veterans. So
Yep.
they're just willfully terminating tens of thousands of veterans. So how do you, in a Congress that has such fealty to Donald Trump, which is led by Speaker Mike Johnson, who pretty much says, "How high, sir?" every time he says jump. How do you
Exactly.
go into Congress and begin to change that?
Well, it's about numbers right now. We have 215 Democrats and we have 217 Republicans in the House. If we can get Florida's first, my seat, and Josh Will's seat in 6, we
Hmm.
have 217 to 217. In the House, if a bill ends up in a tie, the bill dies, right?
Hmm.
There is no tiebreaker. There's another seat available in New York, Stefanik's seat. It has not been scheduled for an actual election yet. So that's how important it is. Roadblocking anything that Donald Trump and Elon Musk try to get through Congress. For instance, ending the Department of Education. This seat could determine whether we keep the Department of Education. It's that important. And it's not about me. It is about us, and it is about equal government. It is about saving Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. I mean, it is that important. But don't worry, I don't feel the distrust.
No, well, you'd be allowed if you were. But you're raising such an important point, and this is really so critical that people, not just in Florida's 1st district or 6th district. I mean, we had Josh Wheel on this podcast last week. It's like he said, if it ties, it dies. The balance of power in the House can shift. So if you're not just a Democrat, but if you're a moderate Republican, if you're an independent and you're fed up with just this first 6-7 week period of Donald Trump's spending cuts and terminations and chaos, crashing the economy, crashing the stock market, crashing your retirement accounts, you have an option. You can go to the polls on April 1st and you can vote for Gay and you can vote for Josh Wheel and you can shift the balance of power in Washington, in the House. And so I like to say, let's stop whining and start winning. That's how you win. That's how you change things. And that special election coming up and on the 1st, and the one eventually when it's scheduled for Stefanik's seat, is so important because it could not only end in a tie, it could flip control of the House. And this is not with us having to wait until November 26. Now, that's the positive. Talk to me about your district. It is solidly red. What has your outreach been with moderate Republicans and independents in your district so that they can hear the message and go to the polls on April 1st and vote for you?
Well, you have to think, I've been running for the seat for 19 months. I've had the opportunity to almost talk to everybody in this district. I have prided myself on talking to anybody. I will talk to Republicans. I will go to a forum with Republicans. I don't mind those things. In this country, we have gotten to a point where we can't talk to each other. And for 19 months, I've been telling people in this district, it is so important that we have conversations and stop being fearful of those conversations. And so I talk to moderate Republicans every day who tell me, can you believe what's happening? Can you believe he did this? And there's a lot of, I don't want to use the phrase, but it's buyer's remorse. They thought all these things were going to happen in D.C. and they're happening right here and people are starting to feel it. My opponent, Jimmy Petronis, has vowed to pass whatever comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, whim or not. I am running to represent the people of this district. I will never vote in favor of anything that cuts SNAP benefits and health care to children. I see the bodies behind these horrible, horrible decisions they're making in D.C., and it has to be a roadblock. It's time that we stop playing nice with the Republicans. I know it's in our DNA as Democrats to play by the rules and all that stuff. I intend to do everything by the rules, but it's time we get tough. It's time we play on their rules.
So let's talk about Petronis for a second. He proudly calls himself Trump endorsed, which means he's basically saying, hey, you see this chaos of the last 6 weeks? I love it. I want more. Okay. That's what he's saying. He adoringly posts videos of Trump doing that weird dance move and of the catastrophic Oval Office meeting with Zelensky. He says the U.S. needs to stop being Ukraine's, quote, ATM. And he mocked Zelensky for not wearing a suit and not shaving. He wants him to shave. This is who you're running against. So when voters are going, hey, I just lost 20% of my retirement account, but let's bring that guy in who thinks the most important thing is for Zelensky to get to shave his beard. I mean, this is what it's come down to. Hopefully voters see the differences. So what are the critical differences that you want to point out to Florida 1 voters between you and Petronis?
Well, what's important about Petronis is, number one, he's the CFO of Florida. He has been the CFO of Florida for 7 years. Under his purview is our insurance prices. He
Hmm.
is solely responsible for our insurance crisis in Florida. And if you're not familiar with what's going on in Florida, everyone is going broke because of insurance costs. It's gone up 52% for everybody. We have people that are being forced out of their homes, and it is solely his fault. He was given this seat by the Republicans because he would not be able to win anywhere else. This is the reddest district in Florida. But he also is not from here. He's not from here. He's never lived here. And, that's not illegal. It's just unethical. How can
Yeah.
you represent the people when you don't know the people? I know the people of this district. I pay bills in this district. I pay my insurance. I shop at the same grocery store as everybody in this district. I know the issues that are facing everyone here, and he can't possibly understand. That's what I hope people understand.
Gun violence is something you are extremely passionate about. It also became your calling. What was the catalyst? What was the moment where you said, this is an issue I have to throw myself into head first?
Yeah, well, I'm an athletic trainer. And if you watch sports, if everybody, watching soccer or football, somebody gets hurt, I'm the one that runs out on the field, you know, says, get up, you're being stupid. I'm just kidding. Takes care of them, tapes their ankles, all the rehab. So in my job in Atlanta, I worked at Emory Sports Medicine, but I also covered predominantly Black high schools in downtown Atlanta. Most of the time, I was the only white person in the stadium, and my 350-pound lineman, called me Mama Gay. But I saw how they lived differently. These Black teenagers in downtown Atlanta had to live differently than the white kids that were 10 miles up the road. They would, you come in the training room and they tell the stories of so and so had a gun and gun fire this weekend. It hit me in the face. And so when I started, being concerned about gun violence, I was the one that got online and like bitched and complained about it. But then I finally found Moms Demand Action that gave me structure to take my anger and my passion and go to Tallahassee and actually fight bad gun bills, fight permitless carry, fight stand your ground, because it's, 18 times more likely for a Black man to be shot and killed in Florida than a white man. So that is what's important to me. Gun violence is disproportionately against minorities, particularly young Black men. And we have to put a stop to it. And it's the availability of guns, and it's solvable. It's a problem that can be solved if we all just work on it. And that's what I intend to do.
Mm-hmm. And you were also very moved by and angered by the shooting in 2012. It's at the Sandy Hook school.
Yeah. Well, Sandy Hook was the catalyst for everybody. My son was 6 months old when Sandy Hook happened. And it broke me. And then I got involved in gun violence prevention, and then Pulse happened. And we saw what happened with an angry man that wanted to kill gay people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn around and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas happened. And just massacre after massacre after massacre that can be prevented. It's all preventable. And if we don't take action, which we did in the Biden administration, Maxwell Frost was responsible for building the gun violence prevention office. And through enhanced background checks in the past year, we were able to reduce gun violence by 25%. Now all that's gone. Donald Trump came in and said, we don't need that anymore. So we need to look for ways that we can work with the Trump administration, but we have to keep things in place that were helpful. The enhanced background check is still there, but we have to go further. We have to do more. We have to make sure we have safe storage. We have to get illegal guns off the streets.
Yeah, gun violence is one of those things that should not be partisan, but it is. But the truth is, when a killer walks into a school, the first thing he doesn't do is ask for the students' voter registration cards. Right. They don't care. They shoot Republican kids and Republicans in movie theaters and discos and concerts, churches, synagogues, with disregard for political affiliation. There's certain issues that should not be partisan, but they are. You've said Florida's sick. Yeah, well, that's right. It's the lobbyists and money. You've said Florida's 6-week abortion ban is going to kill mothers. Talk about that for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to so many mothers who are potential mothers wanting to be mothers who are afraid to get pregnant now in Florida. Because if something happens, they will not get the health care they need. The closest place you can go if you need an abortion in Florida is Virginia. Now, a lot of people can't afford to do that. So, what the things that are happening with the 6-week abortion ban are mothers are getting ill and not getting the care they need. They are having to carry a child that is not viable until they're near death, until the mother is so sick because they didn't get the care they need. Then they get the procedure that is possible. Now, 6 weeks, there's not a woman out there who knows they're pregnant within 6 weeks. It is malpractice. It's killing mothers. It is killing the notion for parents that they want to get pregnant. It's malpractice.
We talked about women's reproductive rights just now. We've talked about gun violence. We've talked about spending cuts and veterans and saving democracy. What are the other critical issues you're most concerned with?
Well, everybody's going broke.
Right.
I mean, that is what I hear the most. I hear it every day. What is your biggest concern? Biggest concern for my people in this district is everyone is going broke. They cannot afford, as prices go up and wages don't, everybody's in a hole. And my biggest concern right now is the tariffs that are about to go into effect. Our people are going to pay more for goods. Our farmers are not in the north part of our district are not getting their subsidies to produce food. My main concern right now is that we're having to bob and weave to catch up with the Trump administration, with the Doge administration, to protect our people. I'm not nervous about the next 3 weeks. I'm not nervous about the election. We have taken the funds that we've been able to raise and used them so well. We are touching every Democrat, every independent, and reaching out to every Republican that we can reach with the funds that we have raised. And those are personal contacts. We have 60 full-time canvassers that are touching everybody. We are in the community. And I think the people of this community can realize that I'm the only one that ever wanted to represent them, even when Gates was here. The only one. They know me by now.
So when you are out there, you mentioned buyer's remorse before. Are you hearing a lot of concern, frustration, and anger coming from a certain part of the Republican electorate?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing the same thing that most people are hearing. Our contractors can't afford lumber now or steel. Our farmers and their subsidies. People thought that these things were happening, these cuts to the deep state were going to happen in D.C. And don't get me wrong, D.C.'s economy is about to be stressed to the max because of all the firings. But that's also happening here at home. And it affects our local economy and our neighbors. This is a large district, but it's a home district. We know each other. We feel each other's pain. And regardless of what everybody has heard about this district, everybody's not riding around with a Trump flag off their truck. We have moderate Republicans here who have come to me and said, I cannot believe this is happening here. I can't believe he did this to me. So yeah, there's a lot of buyer's remorse. And I'm talking to people and telling people the best way to do this is to even out Congress so that there is some balance. Because all of the executive orders are happening. The majority of them are illegal. They're being challenged in court. But he can't do anything if he doesn't pass it through Congress.
Yeah. And Congress has been a pretty good check so far. The Democrats have been, because he hasn't passed any legislation. Which is why he has to do it all through EOs. Now, everything you're saying is so important. What is your closing message, not just for Florida One voters, but for all Americans?
Right. To stay engaged. Our biggest challenge in the beginning of this special election was getting the Democrats out, because the Democrats, we took a hit in November, right? Everybody's so disconnected. They don't want to know what's going on. And trying to get their heads out of the sand and get back up and start fighting has been a challenge. But you see the protests all over the country. People are speaking up, and they're speaking up loud. But what I'm telling the people of this district, everybody's protesting, but we have recourse. In this district, we have recourse, and we can save America from a lot of bad things that can happen. So I'm hoping everybody will get engaged, stay engaged, do something. If it's not for my race, go out and do something. If something is affecting your life, scream about it and tell people your story, because that's the only way we're going to get through this, is with personal stories to reach those people.
And if people want to hear your story, read your story, contribute, where do they do that?
Absolutely. Gay4congress.com. And you can't forget it, because you can't say gay in Florida.
We just did gay in Florida, gay in Florida, gay in Florida. Gay,
And we're on all
gay,
social
gay.
media, all platforms. Check us out, Gay4Congress, Gay.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the campaign?
No, we're excited. I mean, it's going to the last 3 weeks. None of us are going to get any sleep. I couldn't be more proud of my team. It is a well-oiled machine, and we're going to shock the world.
Amen. And I want to put a punctuation on that. Voters, if you're not happy with what you're seeing, you have a chance to change so much. This could be a game changer if Gay and Josh Wheel win on April 1st. So stay engaged, get out there and vote. Gay, good luck to you. We'll follow the campaign. We'll do what we can to help. And hopefully you'll come back and talk to us when you're a congresswoman.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
All righty. Take care. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Lengyel. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.